Hello there. We will be starting in just a couple of minutes. If you can just give me a check in your chat that you can hear me okay, that'll be great. Okay, talk to you soon. Well, welcome to the Holistic Highways webinar, 7 Steps to Freedom from Anxiety and Depression. I'm Kerry, and I am thrilled to spend this next hour with you talking about how to treat depression and anxiety naturally. I'm also going to introduce you to a great life-changing retreat in October called Healing from Depression Naturally. So this next hour is packed with great content that you can use, and as a treat for staying to the end of the webinar, I do have a free gift for you. So just a couple of things to get started with. So what I want to get you really the most out of this webinar. So first off, let's turn off everything that's operating in the background. That includes any email systems, Skype, iTunes, or any extra programs that you might be running. And it's really nice if you can just turn your cell phone off just for this hour. Close your door and give yourself this time to really explore some new strategies on dealing with the depression and anxiety. Now, just to let you know, you have been muted. So if you've been talking to me hoping that I'd hear you, I can't, I'm sorry. But we are recording this webinar for you. What that means is that none of your information will appear in the final webinar, and the recording link will be sent out to you automatically in an email either later on tonight or tomorrow for you. So you can always watch this again if you want to. So let me start off by asking you a question. Tell me, do you struggle with feelings of sadness and despair? And what you can do is you can just write in the chat yes or no, or however you want. Now, there's a little bit of a delay between you and me, so it may take a little while for the responses to start coming in. So do you struggle with feelings of sadness and despair? And I see a couple coming in. Yes, 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 I do. Okay, I have for a while now. Okay, yes, since childhood, says Terry. Okay, every day, says Jim. It's like a wave, it ebbs and it flows. That comes from Mary. And I get yes, yes, and another yes. Okay, so an overwhelming yes, that you are struggling with feelings of sadness and despair. So also tell me, are you happy with the treatment you are getting? So again, that's a yes or a no that you're just going to put in the chat. And again, there's a little bit of a delay between me asking you and you getting back to me. So I'll just sit here and twiddle my thumbs until I hear from you. So are you happy with your treatment that you're getting? Oh, here they come. I'm starting to get a no. No. I get it's better than not being treated at all. Agreed. Yes. I hate taking the meds. Okay. No. No. Sometimes. I'm managing it. And no. Okay, that's fair enough. So what you're telling me is that you have struggled with sadness or despair, and mostly you don't like the treatment, or you're not in treatment. And that's great. But let's check that you're in the right place. You're about to give me an hour of your time in this webinar, and I know that your time is really valuable. So I don't want you to waste that time in being somewhere where you needn't ought to be. So you are in the right place if you are suffering from depression and or anxiety, because that's what this webinar is about. You're in the right place if you want to understand what makes you healthy and vibrant. And you are in the right place if you are frustrated because you aren't feeling much better. You are also in the right place if you believe that depression is not just in your head. And you're in the right place if you're tired of dealing with this, popping pills, in therapy, and still not feeling quite right. And you're in the right place if you wonder why your entire being hurts when you're depressed. So when I see my clients, the reality is, and this is what they tell me, the three real fears that I see from my clients all the time is the first one is drugs are just masking my symptoms. Now, a lot of people worry that they'll have to be on drugs forever. As one client said to me, are drugs and the side effects they bring my only option? So if you struggle with feeling hopeless, sad, or are just a little mentally fragile, then you're not alone. There's more than 100 million Americans. That's literally 1 in 3 struggles with depression. Let's say you complain to your doctor about chronic feelings of sadness and despair. He or she might say you have a disease called depression. But depression is not the cause of your sadness and despair. It's just a name we use to group people together for the purpose of giving them all the same drug therapy. So when you go to the doctors, this is how they think. Feel sad and full of despair? You have depression and need an antidepressant. Case closed. But the case isn't closed, is it? Because conventional medicine fails to address what causes these feelings and why they differ from one person to the next. Let me give you an example to drive home my point. You and another person both have a headache, for example. Your pain is created by drinking too much wine every night, while his results from being hit on the head with the empty bottle every night. It's the same label, headache, but the cause is quite different, isn't it? Obviously, these two chronic headaches can't be cured in the same way because their root causes are quite different. What we do is simply label the disease and approach the treatment identically, even though the cause of that disease may be radically different from person to person. Ultimately, drugs like antidepressants don't cure the disease. They do just mask the symptoms. So there's got to be a more effective way, and there is, and that's what we're going to talk about in this webinar. So the other thing that I hear a lot from my clients is when I go off my meds, my symptoms return. A typical patient who visits me at UPMC Center for Integrative Medicine has already visited so many healthcare practitioners who probably prescribe numerous drugs to address their condition. So my clients or patients feel frustrated because nobody has addressed their underlying symptoms and they're not feeling any better. They're tired of going from prescription to prescription with differing results and often miserable side effects. Like other health issues, I take a really different approach to depression. I attempt to understand what creates it. Because to call someone depressed says nothing about the underlying causes that create depression. We'll talk in this webinar about some underlying causes that you can do to start or some treatments that you can start doing immediately and see some improvement. And the other thing I get is I am just so tired these days. It's exhausting, isn't it, dealing with an illness, especially when the rest of the world is seemingly oblivious of the pain that you're in. Depression depletes our energy. It affects every aspect of our being. Depression is ultimately a condition that intimately involves nearly or all of you, your being, as well as your mental, emotional, social, and spiritual self. This is perhaps why when you're depressed, everything hurts, nothing seems right, and problems are larger than life. We'll talk about ways to bring vitality back into your life. By the way, by staying through to the end of the webinar with me, I will give away my guided meditation, which is part of my anti-anxiety program that I do give to my clients. So what do you think? Do you relate to any of these three? If so, just put your answers again in the chat box. You can put like 1 if 1's where you're at, or 2 or 3, or maybe it's a combination of several of them. So as you're getting ready to do that, I'll twiddle my thumbs again, waiting for those responses. So, okay, first one, Sue says all 3 at different times. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And then I'm getting a 3, a 3, a 1, a 1, a 1, but with a caveat, I'd rather have that than anything else, okay? And a 2. All right, great. So here I am. My name is Kerry. My own brain broke one day in the fall of 1997. It seemed that I could not concentrate. I had ADD type symptoms and I was in school, so that was not the way to be. I was depressed. I was in a brain fog. I could not find joy in anything that I did. I saw doctors, psychiatrists, but no one could find the cause for my symptoms or agree on a diagnosis. Some said I had depression, others suggested chronic fatigue. In fact, I was eventually treated for chronic fatigue. But I didn't just want to blindly medicate my symptoms, so I decided to find the answers myself. So I actually became obsessed with depression and anxiety, and not obsessed in terms of the neurochemical causes of depression and anxiety, but why was there so much depression and anxiety in the world around us? Was this a natural state of affairs to be in? So I decided to find the answers for myself, and I did, and realized that it's not just one thing that causes the brain to break. To get a solution, you have to look at the accumulation of many things. Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You know it's not just one, or rarely is it just one thing that causes the brain to dysfunction. So I'm going to show you how you can heal from depression and anxiety naturally. First off, you need to know your type of depression. So in Ayurveda, which is I'm an Ayurveda practitioner, there are 3 metabolic types and there are 3 types of depression. The first type is called an airy depression. And let me explain what an airy depression is. And I want you to see if this fits you in any way, shape, or form. So with an airy depression, you feel a loss of enthusiasm and a lot of loneliness. You also feel anxiety, fear, and worry. Often you can feel overwhelmed by a life that just seems to be out of control. There is a pervading sense that your mind is being pulled in way too many directions. Feeling mentally overworked, you can feel that you've lost your creative energy, your mental focus and clarity. Add to that a loss of short-term memory and scattered thinking, and this all adds to the underlying sense of anxiety and not feeling grounded. You also feel things such as aches and pains, general fatigue, and things often affect you physically. Under stress, you feel that you're in flight or fight mode and will flee when things get overwhelmingly stressed, so you're out the door. This doesn't mean that you run to the other side of the world. It means that you can perhaps keep yourself occupied as a way to flee. It's a way to avoid dealing with mental or emotional or physical issues for you. The first sign of depression for you is insomnia. Because it's really hard for you to get a good night's sleep, this just adds more to your depression. So do you see yourself in this mirror? This airy type of depression that really brings a sense of anxiety with it. And you don't have to put that in the chat, but just note, is this a kind of depression that you suffer from? Our next kind of depression is a burning depression or a fiery depression. And I'm going to ask you if you have this type of depression. And this is where you often feel that your efforts are thwarted or hampered by others. You often feel irritable and frustrated with life. But these strong emotions often for you mask a huge well of sadness. There's an underlying fear of failure, of losing your competitive edge, and you can often experience bouts of jealousy and feel that others have it easier than you. You will fight under stress and often will sharply criticize others and how they should behave. You want to have things done the right way, and you feel that you have to control the situation in order to get things done the right way. Sometimes you find yourself resorting to outbursts of anger or sarcasm as a means of making your case. So, do you see yourself in this mirror, this more fiery, burning depression that brings a lot of agitation with it? And then our last kind of depression is our earthy type of depression. And the words underneath are just Sanskrit terms. And this earthy type of depression, kind of has you feeling stuck at all levels, sort of mentally, physically, and emotionally. You feel weighed down by life and unable to move forward. Lethargy is a huge problem for you. You don't want to move, you feel dull, and you're just not interested in anything anymore. And you've definitely lost your sense of motivation. You have a deep sense of sadness and you miss the way things were. It's hard for you to move forward in life. In fact, when you are faced with an option of fighting, of flight, or of freezing, what you'll do is you'll freeze under stress. You can also procrastinate, meaning you often have difficulty finishing projects. This lack of progress and achievement further makes you feel sad. Your self-esteem is low, and you often long for days when you felt better about yourself. You feel paralyzed, though, to make any changes towards feeling better. You can eat and sleep in excess and often gain weight, which makes you feel even more lethargic. So, do you see yourself in this mirror too? So, these are the three kinds of depressions that you're probably identifying more with one of them. It doesn't mean that you don't have a combination of both, and you often can, but you'll tend to identify with at least one of these. Now, before we go any further, I do want to make this disclaimer that if you are at risk for suicide or other harm or injury, don't try and treat it on your own. There is help. So you need to call 911 or go to the hospital emergency room. And if you have any thoughts of suicide at all, there are resources for you. There's the suicide helpline, there's the suicide prevention hotline, and the National Suicide Hotline. So just know that you're not alone and that there is help for you. So what I want to introduce you to is the 7 steps to freedom from depression and anxiety, and that's what you signed up for. So what makes this unique is it's a connected approach. So here's you, all right, wanting to be healthy in the middle, but there's no real sense of balance. And we know the things that make us healthy. We know that intuitively. We know that if we have good nutrition, we're going to feel healthy. If our hormones are not sky high, we're going to feel healthy. If we don't have too much inflammation, if our joints and bones aren't aching, we're going to feel better. If our digestive system's working, we're going to be good. But what we do is we don't put all these things together. We turn around and say, not feeling great, feeling depressed, feeling anxious. I know, let me go on a proper diet. So you'll perhaps go on a diet because maybe your depression had you put on some weight. And then you'll go on a crash diet and wonder why you don't feel better. And that's because what you're doing is basically throwing a dart at something and hoping that something sticks. There's no coordination here. There's nothing that comes together. And then another day you might read about detoxing and you might think, oh, that sounds just like me. I've definitely got some toxins. I need to detox. Let me go on a detox diet. And you do that. And that further aggravates your anxiety. Or you read that if you calm the mind, meditation is really good. So you decide to sign up for a meditation class, but you can't sit still because there's too much anxiety going on. So that doesn't work. You drop that. And you see how nothing is coordinated, so nothing really works. So I want to ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how many times have you tried something to help with depression or anxiety? So 1 meaning, nope, not tried anything. 10 meaning, yep, I've tried it all. So where are you in this? And again, it's going to take me a little while to get the results coming in. So I'm getting a few coming in now. Some 8s, a 7, a 6, another 8, and a 9. Okay, great. So we're on the scale of we've tried a few things, definitely. So this is what a balanced approach looks like. Here you are in the middle, totally balanced, because what you've done is you've taken all these things that make for a balanced body and mind and put it all together. So you do something that calms the mind. You're eating food that boosts energy. You are detoxifying enough to make sure that toxins aren't making you feel sluggish. You fixed your digestive system. A lot of people who have that airy type of depression have gas, bloating, and constipation. You cannot feel well in your mind if you can't poop, seriously. Maybe there's inflammation going on, so we need to make sure that you're eating well. If your hormones are out of balance, if you're under extreme stress, or you have just you're under hyper stress in terms that your reaction is intense, then we need to look at what's going on there. And I don't mean just in terms of sort of female or male hormones, I mean in terms of those stress hormones. We need to optimize nutrition for you. Are you eating healthy foods for you? And not only are you eating healthy foods for you, but are you able to digest those foods? Just because you're eating healthily doesn't mean you're actually getting the nutrition from your foods. So see how all of those work together to balance you. And that's what we're looking to do. So what you're going to discover as we go through is that these 7 strategies can work straight away as soon as you can start implementing. So I want you to imagine that feeling then of having a system that actually works. And our first step to that system is actually food. Nourishing right, eating a happy diet. And we cannot be happy because we are what we eat. It all depends on what we take in. So when you're depressed, it's really difficult to look after your body, isn't it? It's a vicious cycle. It's like a tornado. Depression threatens to draw the life force, our sense of vitality out of us. But remember that a tornado begins as a gentle shift that disturbs the balance and then builds on itself. So it is with us. If we don't take care of an imbalance way back when it starts, our imbalance will grow. And this imbalance then causes not only the symptoms of depression, but also tilts us in a direction of poor lifestyle habits too. The things we do in the name of health, disregarding Mother Nature, we adopt foolish lifestyles and take on the latest fad diet, thinking that it'll make us look good and feel better. In general, what we do is we focus on what we put in our mouth because it impacts our body. But we forgot that food nourishes us. Food affects mood, and we forgot the role that diet plays in mental health. We often worry about what we eat and not about what's eating us. How many times do we dive into a bowl of ice cream or eat a handful of chocolate chip cookies to fulfill something that's missing, something that has nothing to do with hunger? Also, how many times do we restrict our food intake out of fear that it will increase our waistlines without realizing how this pattern affects our emotional well-being? So we need to eat a happy diet, one that is right for your metabolic constitution and contains whole, real foods. And eating healthy helps with mood in general. Now, there are some foods that can help with serotonin, which is the chemical in the brain that contributes to happy. Prozac, for example, works by inhibiting serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which then raises the levels in your brain. So some foods are serotonin enhancers. So what they do is they help to raise those levels naturally. So some of those foods include fish oils, because they're rich in omega-3 fatty acids, healthy fats such as coconut oil. So switch out your oil for coconut oil. You'll see quite a difference. Flaxseed oil is another great one. Sour cherries are really great, as are eggs, not just egg whites, but egg yolks too. So feed your brain and your body with a nutrient-dense, whole, fresh, more plant-based diet that includes plenty of protein and healthy fats. Your brain is about 60% fat, so it does make sense that eating plenty of healthy fats, including those anti-inflammatory omega-3s and protein, can help heal your brain. But let's look at it in a little bit more detail for you so that it's a little bit more practical. So first off, don't go too long between or skip meals. If you're feeling hungry, you already have low blood sugar. So healthy between meal snacks are really good, or several small meals a day instead of 3 big ones are good too. It's important to include plenty of quality protein and fat with every meal in order to keep blood sugar stable. Stable blood sugar goes a long way in helping to support stable stress. Definitely, this is not a good time to eat a low-fat, low-protein, or high-carb diet. Butter, not margarine or hydrogenated shortening, is good. Olive oil is great. Avocados, coconut oil, we just talked about that. Walnuts, eggs with the yolks. Full-fat raw dairy is really good for you. Grass-fed meats, if you're going to eat meats, cod liver oil, this is all great stuff. The other thing, as we're talking about food, is the highs and lows of sugar. So really important to cut way back or completely eliminate sugar and refined carbs. And if you've ever eaten something sugary and crashed a little later and felt absolutely miserable, then you know how sugar can contribute to depression, don't you? The reason for this is that big fluctuations in blood sugar create stress in our bodies. Both high and low blood sugar can cause your body to release a surge of adrenaline and cortisol. These are those stress, fight or flight hormones. So for people battling anxiety, these surges can trigger panic attacks. Prolonged or endured stress also creates imbalances that can cause hypoglycemia as well. This is an example of emotional stress leading to physical problems that in turn add to more emotional stress. Now, studies also confirm that sugar consumption can contribute to depression. So become your own detective and find and avoid those hidden sources of sugar, which are far more prevalent than you think. The other thing is to think nutrient dense. Now, often people under emotional stress do have a difficult time eating or experiencing changes in metabolism. I remember having a hard time eating because I was so nauseous, I had an upset stomach, or after eating it kind of felt like the nutrition wasn't being absorbed. So you definitely don't want to waste any eating effort on worthless foods. So bypass processed junk and go for real whole foods. Now, this is Lisa. And Lisa gave me a testimonial, and Lisa said, having finished my first month, I'm feeling great and my mood has improved. I just feel more stable, less up and down. Thank you for your help. Lisa actually had bipolar, so she cycled. So after we worked together for a while, then we were able to stabilize her moods. And that's what she was saying. She just feels a lot more stable, less up and down. So that was great. Thanks, Lisa. Now, let's talk about that cup of coffee, shall we? It revs you up unnaturally and contributes to exhaustion, especially not good for that airy or fiery type of depression, because what it's going to do, it's going to lead to adrenal fatigue because it stimulates your stress hormones, which you don't need any extra of. You already have a lot of those. So I'm going to suggest a great tea for you, and that would be Tulsi tea, Tulsi. That's Tulsi. You can find it at Giant or Giant Eagle. And Tulsi tea is supportive of adrenal health, and it's a great alternative to coffee. And the next one are bugs in your gut affecting your brain or immune system. Now, emerging research tells us and reveals that there is a gut-brain connection, and Ayurveda has always known this. When it comes to the gut, most physicians and scientists miss what is right in front of them because we're looking for solutions in the wrong place. Over the years since I've been practicing, I've seen emotional, psychiatric, and behavioral problems stop or start because they've been triggered by problems in the gut. So I had a female patient one time, and she actually found herself free of lifelong depression after a course of antibiotics that she needed, that her GP prescribed. But I also worked with her to support her nutrition in that too, after the antidepressant. So starting with the gut is really paramount in treating depression. And this is Pat, and Pat said, I've been told recently that I look wonderful, vibrant, and healthy. I do feel much better and healthier. So vibrancy is something that depressed people don't tend to have. Neither do people riddled with anxiety do not tend to have a sense of vibrancy around them. So once we can build that vibrancy back up, that's really a great thing. So it is important to balance emotions, and we can do that with food. So let's talk about the different kinds of food that's needed for the different kinds of depression for you. So Ariel's airy depression. She grabs food on the run. She often feels lightheaded. And what she needs is warm, nourishing, oily foods with a sweet, sour, and salty taste. So a great breakfast that would be grounding for an airy type of depression would be a bowl of oatmeal made with almond milk. It's going to be cooked with raisins, almonds. You can flavor it with cinnamon and a little bit of ginger. Add a little bit of ghee, which is clarified butter, and this would be a wonderful breakfast to ground that central nervous system. So if that's your kind of depression, ground it, and you can ground it with food. For that fiery depression, this is Barb. She has that fiery, burning depression. She's the one that's the go-getter. She's out there. And she needs something cooling. So, for example, let's talk about lunch with her. A cheese and cucumber sandwich with wholemeal bread and a chickpea salad with an oil and cilantro dressing would be really good for her because it would cool and calm the central nervous system. It would reduce that fiery agitation that comes with sort of that burning depression. And lastly, if you have an earthy depression, and we have Ed's earthy depression, who eats a lot of comfort foods, you need for dinner, for example, a light dinner, such as a bowl of soup, something a little spicy in it and stimulating. That's going to get your sluggishness a little fired up, and that's what we need to do. I also recommend sipping ginger root tea before each meal. And what that does is that kind of kindles the digestive fire, your metabolism. It gets that digestive system working really efficiently, because if it's sluggish, then so too will be your mind. So here's an anti-anxiety tip for you that I want you to take home and be able to use. So your first meal of your first drink of the day, rather, before you get to your coffee, before you get to your tea or anything else that you may have in the morning, is to drink a glass of warm water every morning with lemon. Warm water is gently hydrating. So for that anxiety type of depression that tends to have constipation with it and insomnia, then this is going to be really, really rejuvenative. It's going to be gently hydrating. And also with the lemon juice in it, is very, very gently detoxifying too. So for that earthy depression that's a little stagnant, a little sluggishness, it's going to get that sluggishness moving too. So I do suggest that you try it. Try it for a couple of weeks and see how you feel. Our second key to healing from depression naturally is actually exercise. Moving your spirit. And there's no doubt that moving is going to shake up your spirit and oust depression from your body and mind. This is just what it does. We know that. So exercise ignites that digestive fire, your metabolism, so that you are really efficiently digesting your nutrients. Exercise also helps your body to create and utilize serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, among other chemicals that affect our thinking. It also increases all other body chemicals, such as our hormones and enzymes, to work really well and efficiently. Exercise massages internal organs, leads to greater blood flow. That means improved oxygenation, which means improved mood. Now, if a new drug came onto the market that helped depression as much as exercise does, people would be clamoring for it, wouldn't they? A truly natural antidepressant. Physical movement changes your chemical makeup in your brain and your body. It causes mood-brightening brain chemicals to be released in a balanced and well-orchestrated way. Moving our body moves our spirit. Exercise infuses light, strength, and vitality into our body. A daily infusion of oxygen, just 20 minutes of exercise a day, helps to counteract depression. Why then do so many of us dread exercising? Why is it hard to get moving, especially when we're feeling down in the dumps, especially when we know it's going to do us good? The problem lies in finding a positive way to integrate movement into our daily lives, and this is where the concept of exercise has gone wrong. Exercise offers us far more than cardiovascular health and burning excess calories to lose weight. Exercise should never be punishment for enjoying an extra cookie or a slice of cake. Rather, it's intended to recreate the flow of energy in the body and help rejuvenate and regenerate. So let's apply the concept of do no harm to exercise. Let's plan on having playouts, not workouts. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it. Choose an exercise program that you love, not one that adds to your imbalance. Let's talk about Barb. So we're going to shake off the blues. Motion is definitely the magic potion for Barb. And Barb was actually a client of mine, or still is a client of mine. She's not Barb. I just made that up. But she is definitely a real client. So on good days, Barb finds the intensity of her work deadlines and her pressure really great. It's almost intoxicating for her. So she's driven to succeed, and she brings a sense of determination to everything she does. She's often bored by physical activity that lacks challenges. Walking, for example, is not really her cup of tea. What's more like her? Probably something like a fierce tennis match or a head-banging game of racquetball. That's much more her style. Exercise was initially a way for Barb to let off steam, but the workouts turned hotter as she carried her resentment and her irritability to the gym. The more frustrated she felt at work and at home, the more intensely she worked out. Barb was literally burning her body to the ground. She was getting migraine headaches more frequently, her skin was irritated, and she developed unexplained rashes. Her eyes were more red and irritated than usual, and these are all symptoms from an Ayurveda perspective of a fiery or burning type of imbalance. A burning depression is marked by frustration and irritability at every phase. From a modern Western perspective, an excess of the fiery imbalance translates into an increase in dopamine and a decrease in serotonin. Barb's aggressive exercise program was further elevating her dopamine and depleting her serotonin. So it was doing the opposite. So her body was chronically tense. Now, convincing Barb that physical exercise could undo her depression was not hard. Barb knew that when she exercised, she felt great. The difficult part was in persuading Barb to find a way of moving that involved only pleasure and not an attempt to reach some predetermined goal. Pushing too hard or getting caught up in the heat of competition are the typical downfalls of somebody with this kind of depression, and it was Barb's problem. She was not even really aware of her competitive nature. So we had to work on a challenge, and that was to take exercise leisurely. And Barb had to find ways to learn not to push, but to enjoy the process instead. However, taking it easy was hard for her. The idea of having fun for the sake of it was a very different way of thinking for her. After all, the fun for her was in the goal of winning. But bringing awareness to this is a key factor in dopamine lowering and serotonin boosting. So I want you to monitor your level of enjoyment and intensity. If what you're doing is not easy and fun, then stop doing it and switch gears to something else or drop the intensity level. A good exercise for Barb would involve water, which pacifies that fieriness or that burning. Indeed, Barb found swimming to be excellent for relieving tension and toning her body. At first, it was difficult for her not to drive herself to do a set number of laps, but eventually she learned to focus on enjoying the process rather than being completely goal-oriented. Other activities you can do if you have this fiery type of depression, well, swimming's great. Other than that, moderate paced hiking or walking. That's moderate. The goal of a hike is not to reach the mountaintop. The goal is to enjoy the hike. Low intensity rowing or canoeing or kayaking is great. Windsurfing is fabulous. Horseback riding, mountain biking, golfing, any non-competitive water sport like paddleboarding, sailing. And if you're indoors, Tai Chi is great for this fiery type of depression, or a non-vigorous form of yoga, although fiery depressive people are often attracted to very vigorous yoga. So that was Barb. And here's my anti-anxiety tip number 2. Just stretch for 10 minutes a day. I do want you to find 10 minutes and just go through a very simple, very gentle stretching routine. You can find those in many places. I have a really nice one on my YouTube channel. just to get that lubrication going, to bring synovial fluid to the joints, and just to get rid of some of that sluggishness. And our third tip is sleep, recharging your life force, the pill versus the pillow. Terrible sleep will only contribute to and exacerbate depression. So you want to aim for about 8 hours solid, uninterrupted sleep every night. Well, that's advice we can get anywhere, isn't it? But it's not that easy, is it? You know you should be getting 8 hours of sleep a night. I would say that 95% of my clients that come to see me because of anxiety or depression have insomnia. Now, it may be that some can't get to sleep. It may be that some can get to sleep but can't stay asleep, and it may be that others sleep too much. So what can you do? Well, sleep was a big problem for me. I tried everything and nothing worked. I did not like the after groggy effect of sleeping pills. Melatonin, kava, or other sleep-promoting teas, herbs, or supplements sometimes were helpful, but they weren't really consistent for me. But in the end, I received some great advice during 2 separate times in my life when I really struggled with insomnia. The first is if you wake in the middle of the night and you know there is just no way you're going to sleep, rather than stress over it, which makes it worse, get up, brew some herbal tea, have some quiet time to yourself, read something relaxing. This is not a thriller that you're reading at this point, or write in a journal. If you're going to be awake at night, you might as well make it quality time. The other piece of advice I received is in the morning after not sleeping well, focus on the sleep that you did get rather than on what you did not get, and be thankful for it. I also learned the value of yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is yoga sleep, and an hour of yoga nidra is like having a really good night's sleep. I'll have a link for you to download my Yoga Nidra MP3 for you after the webinar. Try it. It just might make a huge difference for you. It's essentially a guided meditation that's really profoundly refreshing. So let's go back to Ariel's airy depression and the wind that blows sleep away. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Ariel. Ariel's body was exhausted. It was almost too tired from tossing and turning that she did every single night. She began to fear going to bed. After only a few hours of sleep, watching the sun rise at the beginning of yet another workday, she felt overwhelmed at the prospect of battling through another day with little sleep. Ariel told me that she had like an internal fan of confetti inside her. That's how she felt. She was on edge, anxious, afraid of what was around the corner. Thoughts came rapidly, one after the other, and letting go of them was really difficult for her. Not only did Ariel experience continuous fatigue, she was often sick. In the past 6 months, she'd had several colds and frequent problems with her digestive system. Ariel's type of imbalance causes a mental whirlwind, which in turn drains the brain of nourishment. It was imperative in working with Ariel to give her a herbal supplement just so that she could get some rest. The herbs worked in a balanced way to nourish and calm the mind. It wasn't a sedative. It didn't knock her out. So it nourished, it calmed, and it calmed the senses and that central nervous system. They improved the quality of Ariel's sleep, not necessarily the quantity initially, enabling her body to repair from the damage done by sleep deprivation. However, in order to relieve Ariel's insomnia long term, it was really important for her to make some lifestyle changes. First, it was really important for Ariel to stop drinking mind-racing, body-stimulating substances such as caffeinated drinks. A creature of habit, and aren't we all, she had gotten into the habit of beginning the day with several cups of coffee, and then she looked forward to her afternoon sodas. So I advised Ariel also to be in bed, settled, and ready to snooze before 10 o'clock at night. But I didn't want her to actively try and fall asleep. Instead, I recommended she bring her attention to her breath. I wanted sleep to come to her and not for her to have to chase it. Ariel also needed regularity or routine during the day. Her body needed clues to anticipate sleep time. I suggested that she keep her bedroom dark, so she was encouraged not to read. She had to turn off the computer, turn off TV 2 hours before bedtime, and darkness is necessary for the production of the hormone melatonin, which prepares the body for sleep. In addition, I suggested that Ariel drink a glass of warm milk flavored with nutmeg, which is a sleep aid, as a tasty and grounding way of calming and grounding that central nervous system. Now, this was not all we did. We also modified her diet to include sweet, warm, nourishing foods and restorative yoga poses. We did meditation and calming breathing exercise, which all went a long way in helping Ariel to get that restorative sleep that she so needed. And moving on to our fourth step in healing from depression naturally, breathing, letting your life force flow because it's good medicine. I often tell my clients I'm going to help them to breathe. Of course I breathe, is the reply I get. But have you ever noticed what happens to your breathing patterns when you feel stressed, anxious, or happy? This is because the brain, the nervous system, the heart, and the lungs all function in unison. Don't believe me? Remember the shortness of breath as you became anxious or fearful. A moment of stress can literally take our breath away. Now, changes in breath are not just about negative emotions. What about laughter? A genuine deep belly laugh floods our cells with happy brain chemicals. It forces us to breathe deeply and fully as we release all that stagnant energy. After a belly laugh, we feel lighter and brighter, don't we? However, when we're depressed, our breath changes, and this further promotes that depressive mood. So now we're going to get to Ed's earthy depression. Ed needed to liven up. He wanted to do so, but he didn't know how. Weighed down by his sadness and his body, he'd put on a lot of weight, he did not see his way out of this sort of heavy depression that he was experiencing. His type of depression had turned him into a couch potato. His digestion was so low that he was unable to digest food well. He developed digestive toxins which were literally clogging him up and blocking his sense of vitality. So how was Ed's breathing? On inhalation, his belly drew inward, and on exhalation, it relaxed outward. This is the reverse of a healthy breathing pattern. Ed's extreme lack of motivation was clear just in his breathing pattern. Watching him, I could see that his body collapsed with each breath. He appeared to be holding his breath when he talked, which made his voice sound almost like a whisper. Unable to get his energy moving, he felt paralyzed and had no oomph, no get up and go. Ed needed to move and be moved. And so I taught him a breathing technique called bellows breath. It's an empowering breathing exercise, and bellows breath literally melts away digestive toxins that clog everything up. Bellows breath was really helpful in boosting Ed's energy levels. A few rounds of this technique first thing in the morning nudged Ed to get moving. And throughout the day, whenever he felt lethargic, I told him to do this breathing exercise again. And when he did, it gave him a natural lift. As he did this several times a day, Ed began to notice an increase in his general energy levels. This exercise, or it was breathing, but it is a kind of exercise, fanned his digestive fire, which then caused his metabolism to burn more intensely, so then he began to lose weight. Naps after meals became a thing of the past. And when our digestion is really efficient, or our metabolism, and we are efficient fat burners, then we feel really energetic after a meal rather than groggy. So if you're feeling fatigued, tired, or lethargic after you eat a meal, that's a sign that there's something wrong with your digestive system. Now, the second exercise I had Ed do was another technique called head shining breath, and that cleared the cobwebs from his head. So bellows breath and head shining breath both balance this earth type of depression. They work by quickly oxygenating the blood. In terms of depression, they stimulate the network of nerves in the abdominal cavity that regulates digestion and metabolism. These exercises trigger the release of two stimulating substances, epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are deficient in this kind of depression. Now, you can find these type of breathing techniques really easily available on lots of YouTube videos if you want to give it a try, or feel free to contact me and I'll send you a link. That's not a problem. But just take a look at your own breathing. Is your belly going out on the inhale and in on the exhale? If not, Try changing it. It's going to make a huge difference for you. So your anti-anxiety tip number 4 is just to breathe. And one of the best breaths that you can do at any time, if you take your left hand and just place it on your belly, take your right hand and just place it on your chest. And I want you to breathe deeply into your belly. And as you breathe into your belly, imagine that you're filling up a vase full of water. You fill up the base first, don't you? So breathe into the belly so that your fingers actually separate, and then bring that breath all the way up through your ribs into your chest, and then exhale through your chest, ribs, and belly. And on that exhale, really bring that belly button in again. Let's do that again. So inhale, bringing that breath into that belly. Feel your fingers widen. Bring that breath all the way up to your ribs, all the way up to your chest, and exhale, chest, ribs, and belly. This is called the yoga breath, or 3-part breath. Really, really great for bringing mind and body together and calming that central nervous system. So you can do that almost anywhere. You can't do it in the car driving, but you can do that almost anywhere. So moving on to our 5th step, letting the body move the spirit. So this is yoga. And perhaps you've seen pictures of people doing yoga and they're twisted like pretzels, and you probably thought, I could never do that. I'm just not that flexible. Even if you can't twist like a pretzel, and by the way, most of us can't, you can certainly do yoga. Yoga untangles the mess of depression through awareness. Yoga postures allow us to place our awareness on the body rather than the mind. And by naturally releasing those brain stabilizing neurochemicals, yoga postures relieve the many symptoms that we get with a depressed state, such as anxiety, lethargy, and sleep problems. Now, yoga should be done as mindfulness to gain all of its benefits. If we just go through the motions, then we have limited yoga to just a physical exercise. We've limited it to stretching and toning, to increasing spinal flexibility and lubricating the joints. Now, don't get me wrong, these are all good things to do, but there's so much more with yoga. So why stop here? The real healing power lies in mindfulness, and it's not uncommon for people to report that they feel a sudden surge of happiness during a yoga practice. Eventually, this feeling will stay with you outside of your yoga practice. Yoga also rejuvenates the mind, improves digestion, and helps remove the daily stresses that we have to deal with. So let's look at what kind of yoga practice we should have for Barb. Remember Barb? She has that fiery, burning type of depression. Well, Barb's body tended to overheat with physical activity. She responded emotionally with irritability, and when I suggested yoga, she was not keen. She thought she was strong, but not flexible, and that she didn't have the patience to do something she didn't think that she was very good at. Barb pushed herself to the max whenever she could. She did tend to overdo it. It was important that she not become too competitive with her practice. At first, she would just stick with poses she could do well, and she would not do those that she disliked or wasn't very good at. But these were often the very ones that would give her the most benefit. I wanted Barb just to enjoy the sensations of going through different poses, and I knew that these would quieten some of her agitation. Restorative poses helped Barb with the other manifestations of her depression, such as migraine headaches and her high blood pressure. Doing poses that require bending forward also help cool her down and relax her. These poses are also about turning the mind inward, and they allowed Barb to experience a calming of the mind and body as she practiced. So I do encourage you to visit your local yoga studio, try it out. You will be surprised at the results. And our 6th step is the importance of seasonal changes. In Ayurveda, we know that specific energies govern specific seasons. Here's how it works. Pitta, which is that fiery type of depression, governs summer. Vata, which is that airy type of depression, governs fall through early winter. We're coming into Vata season now, in fact. And Kapha governs late winter through spring. So knowledge of what your metabolic type is, which sees, rules then which season is really valuable for you, because we can and must adjust our diet and lifestyles accordingly to stay healthy. For example, in summer, we crave light and cooling foods, which balance pitta or Barb's burning kind of depression. In the winter, we need heavier, oilier comfort foods, which balance Vatta's cold and light qualities. That's the airy type of depression that Ariel has. And when it's cold out, we need warmth. When it's hot out, we need cool. When it's wet out, we need dry. Sounds pretty simple and intuitive, doesn't it? And that's what Ayurvedic principles are all about, using opposites to balance the metabolic types. Therefore, it's important to not only know how to manage ourselves during the seasons, but also as we change into a season. That's called the joint between seasons. Transitioning from one season to the other is when we tend to get sick, or when we tend to feel more symptoms. Our bodies have been used to the routine food and lifestyle of the last season, and without some prep work, switching to a new season immediately is a shock to the system, which then affects our immunity. So we can kiss that summer cold goodbye and learn how to prevent it. Also notice that when the curve dips, the previous metabolic type is low, while the next type is just ramping up. This is and when you want to start getting ready for the upcoming season. How do you do that? I'm going to tell you. Definitely consider doing a cleanse for 5 solid days to rid old toxins and rebuild the body-mind with renewed cells and tissues. And yeah, I recommend doing this 3 times a year. It's the cheapest and most effective way to give our body a well-needed oil change at home. And by cleanse, and I almost don't like to use that word because it conjures up colonics and starvation or just smoothies. An Ayurvedic cleanse means that you eat really well, but you eat really well for your metabolic type. And you eat easily digested foods. You do not go hungry. The other thing is to incorporate foods that are appropriate for the upcoming season while weaning off foods from the last season. And nature's pretty good at setting us up for that. You can shop farmers markets, which are almost always harmonious with nature and the seasons. Change your exercise routine to match the season if necessary. Cooling exercises like biking, swimming outdoors, and surfing should be done in warmer months. Whereas in the winter, cross-country skiing keeps us toasty and warm and sweaty on the inside and keeps both feet grounded. We're in Vata season, we need to be grounded. Yoga is good for all seasons. So stick to the daily routine or your daily routine. It's nature's law. The only thing that should shift in your day is sunrise and sunset. The rest should be followed always. Keep in mind what your metabolic type is. If you have the airy anxiety type depression going on, you are almost never going to be drinking iced water. If you have Barb's fiery, irritable, and agitated type of depression, you'll always want to be mindful of anything too spicy or fermented. And if you have Ed's earthy depression, you will always want to be mindful of too many sweets. Sunshine is very therapeutic in dealing with depression and stress-related issues. Not only does it supply much-needed vitamin D, but the bright light from the sun positively influences brain chemistry and hormone balance. Think about all the people who experience wintertime depression. We need the sun. I remember craving sunshine myself while I was really struggling. It seemed to mysteriously ease some of my emotional pain, and I found it really soothing just to lay in the sun. Take some time to sit in the sun, even if it's the greenhouse effect because it's too cold outside. You know that feeling when you sit in front of a window and allow the light to warm you? And if you have a cat, follow the cat. She is almost always enjoying the sun. And this is Kathy from New Cumberland, and she said, I have never felt so good. Just feels fabulous. For the first time in years, I feel I'm in control of what I'm eating. It is a lot easier than I first thought. Kathy actually had an eating disorder. She was a binge eater, and she cycled with it, so it would come in phases. So just to stabilize her was quite successful. So that's what she alludes to when she says, for the first time in years, I feel that I'm in control of what I'm eating. It's not that she was dieting. It's just that she felt she was in control of the food and it wasn't controlling her. So thank you, Kathy, for that testimonial. And then our seventh step to healing from depression and anxiety naturally is to take time to chill. So much easier said than done, isn't it? Constantly feeling stressed out will become a surefire way of becoming depressed, or at the very least, it's going to stoke the fires of depression. Find what calms you and practice it. Whether that includes meditation, yoga, or just walking your dog. Many of my clients find my Yoga Nidra CD helpful at melting away stress and anxiety, and I will give you the link for that as a thank you for staying on the webinar for me. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to spend 10 minutes a day just on you. Self-care is not selfish. It's essential for you to calm and regroup the central nervous system. Put your feet up, drink some relaxing herbal tea or eat a healthy snack and just relax. It will switch your gears a bit and recharge your batteries, especially if it's been a busy day. This is really important in cases of adrenal exhaustion or that airy type of depression that Ariel has. Pushing yourself without breaks will further damage your body, which negatively affects your emotional and mental health even more. So my next anti-anxiety tip is to spend 10 minutes a day just for you. That doesn't mean it's 10 minutes a day that you can catch up on the laundry. It doesn't mean it's 10 minutes a day that you're going to catch up on email. It's 10 minutes a day just for you. Now, if you can't find 10 minutes a day, I'm going to say then you probably need half an hour. So if you're that stressed and that busy that you don't have 10 minutes a day, you definitely need to find it. It will make such a big difference for you. Try it. Again, try it for a couple of weeks. Give it time. And feel free to email me back if it doesn't work, because I'll be very, very surprised if it doesn't. So what do you think? We've looked at all these things, and I just want to talk to you about what Beth said. Beth said, "Hi, I'm having another amazing week. I feel so happy and uplifted. I put makeup on for the first time in a long time on Monday. I looked into the mirror and actually told myself that I look beautiful. I have never done that." And the reason that this is up here is Beth, she had a terrible time. She had just lost her spouse. So she had every reason in the world to feel depressed. And there's no reason not to feel depressed for many of us. And she was having a hard time getting over it. And I remember when I first went to her house, she had all the shades drawn. Everything was closed up. Everything was covered. And she had just turned totally inwards. So to be able to say, A, that she's having an amazing week, and that she feels happy and uplifted, and that she put makeup on for the first time in a long time was tremendous. It was actually very, very heartwarming for me to see her get to that point. So let's go back over why you showed up today. You showed up today because you were looking for more natural ways to treat anxiety and depression. So I'm going to suggest that it's time for you, and that it's time for you to implement an anti-anxiety strategy or an anti-depression strategy that works for you. So really, it's your time. Now remember, nothing that I have shared with you today is earth-shattering. You know that. I've not given you anything that you didn't probably already know. But I do want to say that I've used every single one of these strategies together to create a phenomenal regime that works not just for me, but works for my clients too on depression and anxiety. So you want to know how to feel better? Then we want to put that knowledge into action. You can take these 7 steps and put that into action. But if you would like to take that a little further, then I want to introduce you to a phenomenal retreat we have coming up called Healing from Depression Naturally. It's a sanctuary retreat at Nemacolin Woodlands Resort. And it's called Healing from Depression and Anxiety Naturally. It's from October the 23rd to the 25th. It's at their phenomenal resort, which if you've been up there, you know the grounds are incredibly peaceful. So it's really conducive for healing up there. And here's what Katie said after she had gone up. She said, I think what you're doing is amazing because it's 100% positive and enables people to improve their lives. It doesn't get any better than that. And those of you who are on this webinar who are in the healing professions, you know it doesn't get any better than that. When you can help somebody naturally and see an improvement, then that's all the reward, isn't it? So here's what you will get if you come to the Ayurveda Sanctuary. First off, you get a consultation before you even arrive at Nemacolin with me to determine your individualized treatment plan. So I will go through an 8-step process with you to determine what your metabolic type is. That then determines your blueprint for dealing with your depression. Do you have the more fiery type of depression, or do you have that more anxiety-ridden type of depression, or is it that stuck earthy depression that Ed has, or is it a combination of a couple depending on what's going on at different times in your life? So you'll have that consultation with me before you even get to Nemacolin so that we can really fine-tune and do an individualized, customized plan for you. You will also get a nutritional plan for your imbalance where we use food as medicine. So not only do you get to eat foods that are right for your type of depression when you're at Nemacolin, you will also get to take home a nutritional plan that's, again, customized for you. It'll be the right foods for you according to the season that we're in. So it'll be according to Vata season or according to fall. So you'll have a list of the right foods for you, the right times of days. It's the best time for you to eat, whether your biggest meal should be at lunchtime, whether you're a person that should skip breakfast, whether you're a person that should be having a nutritious breakfast, a grounding breakfast, or a cooling breakfast. You'll have that, and you'll have all the recipes for it too. You will also get daily meetings with your behavioral health therapist, and that's going to help you with your triggers and behaviors. So I am so fortunate to have partnered with Relationship Resolutions here, and they will be doing this seminar with me, or this sanctuary with me. And Ginny, who is on the call, will be your behavioral therapist, and she will be there visiting with you daily. She'll have an intake with you, and she'll work with you each day to help you see what triggers you're going through, what triggers that kind of depression, and some great behavior modification too. So truly then you get a more integrated approach where we're looking at it from nutrition, we're looking at it from body therapists, we're looking at it from an exercise point of view, and we're looking at it from a behavioral health point of view too. And if you have any questions for Ginny, she is on the call, feel free to put it in the chat and she'll get back to you on that. You will also get to do some daily exercise. So I'm not going to have you look like a pretzel, and certainly she doesn't look like a pretzel, but we will do some daily exercise routines that are right for your type of depression. It may be doing nothing more than breathing initially. It may be that you need to run a block. I don't know. We need to know what your metabolic type is, but we'll do the right kind of right kind of exercise for you. For example, Ariel's area depression, she was a runner and she enjoyed running, but she had depleted herself so much with her anxiety that running actually depleted her even more, and it increased her anxiety. So it was hard for her to give up running because she was so used to doing it, but it was actually making her worse. And once she did that and went to something different, a more restorative type of practice, exercise, she actually reduced a lot of her anxiety. We also get to do body therapies. So you're going to do daily body therapies that are designed for your type of depression. So these are done by trained Ayurvedic practitioners or therapeutic practitioners that will do the kind of body therapies that are right for your metabolic type. So for some, it'll be to ground and calm that central nervous system. For others, it'll be to sort of lift and revitalize. And for others, it'll be to cool down, to calm and cool that central nervous system. So part of your consultation, when you have that consultation with me, will be to look at all those to look at what those therapies are that you need that are right for your metabolic type. And certainly we can go over that in more detail, but know that there are 4 or 5 different therapies using a lot of different oils and pastes and herbs that are going to feel really, really nice. But you can see the girl on the left, she's actually having a paste applied to her. That's more like a lymphatic detoxification. And the girl on the right is just having a really nice oiling that's done throughout the whole body. So you'll get to do those as well. And you'll also get to do some workshops. There'll be daily workshops designed to teach you how to heal the brain. So it'll be things like, sort of mental health and nutrition. What foods do we eat? We'll have workshops on using essential oils because they can be helpful. We'll have workshops on daily routines. What are the best daily routines to set up? Each day there'll be workshops designed for us to get together so that you have a toolbox that you can take home at the end of this weekend. So you don't just come for this weekend, feel great, and then think, oh, now I'm back to the real world. No, you have a toolbox that's going to take you back home so that you can carry on the good work that you've done this weekend. So at the end of this, you're going to feel energized. So ready to create your wellness retreat? Well, yes, you say. But Kerry, what's the bottom line? This is Nemacolin. What's the investment here? And that's a really great question. It's a fair question. So the total cost for the long weekend is $2,400, and that is all inclusive. So that includes all your food, that includes your accommodation, and you'll get to be in a townhouse by yourself, or a room, depending on which you prefer. That also includes all your body therapies, all your behavioral health therapies. So you don't have to spend a dime when you get here unless you want to do something different. But that's the total cost. But what we have decided to do for you, because you came on this webinar and showed interest, is reduce that cost to you to $2,000. So we can do that for the next 5 days. But I just want to let you know we are only going to take 10 people onto this sanctuary. And that's because for Ginny and I to really be able to give you the attention that you need, to really support you through those body therapies, which are quite life-changing, and to really give you the time, then we can only really manage 10 people. So this is at Nemacolin Woodlands Resort. Some of you have probably been. This is their number, 724-329-6411. If you would like to register, that takes you to their registration department. And if you haven't seen Nemacolin, this is an example of one of their rooms. They're beautiful rooms. And if you look at the girl on the left, she's actually having Nassia oil applied to her. This is a nasal oil that gets applied, which is really calming for that central nervous system. The picture in the middle is having warm oil poured from a copper kettle onto the forehead. And that is really, really soothing for that central nervous system. So both of these are for really high anxiety conditions. Obviously, we'll do yoga as well, but you don't have to be a yogi to be able to do yoga. We will do it as where you are. So you don't have to be trained in yoga. You don't ever have to have taken a yoga class to be able to do yoga here. So this is the Ayurveda Sanctuary, October the 23rd through the 25th. To let you know those dates. You can also call me, and this is my number. So if you have questions or you want to know a little bit more about it, I understand that's quite an investment. You may not want to do that right off the bat. You may want to talk to me, and you can certainly talk to me. You may actually want to talk to Ginny, in which case I can give you her number if you want to come through to me first, and we can set that up too. So we're quite happy to have you talk to us first if you're not sure that this is right for you. So your investment, instead of being $2,400, is $2,000 within the next 5 days. We have limited it to 10 people, which I think is fair. And as we move on, I just want to tell you that I'm so excited to do something today. I am actually going to give away to you my guided meditation for free. I'm just going to bring it up and load it for you so that you have it. And you should see it in the chat. I see it, so hopefully you will too. So this is something that I'd like to do for you. you can pick it up right here. You just download now and it'll take you to the site for you to get it. It's a way to say thank you for being my special guest today and for staying for the whole webinar. You have given me an hour and 15 minutes. I really appreciate you staying here for the whole webinar. It's a lot of time. I know you're busy. We're all busy. So I really, really appreciate you doing this. So try it. Go ahead and use it and let me know whether it works for you. But give it time. It's not going to work the first night. It takes time to build patterns. So give it a week and then see how you feel. So I created this sanctuary retreat because my clients were telling me these things. They were telling me things like, my life is drifting away from me. I feel empty and hollow inside. I've fallen into the muck again. I'm exhausted all the time. And I just get so frustrated with themselves for feeling the way they did. So because of these things, that's why I created this sanctuary, Healing from Depression Naturally. So I did it. I did it for me. And some of my clients did it too. So I just want to go through what they said. Anne from Pittsburgh said, I am much more finely attuned to noticing the foods and situations that cause me stress and the things I can do to ground myself back down. And Anne had that sort of airy type of depression. And Joanne, she's from Pittsburgh, said, I am not using alcohol anymore. I realized I was using it to self-medicate. That alone is worth so much. Thank you. Yep, and how many times do we turn to something that self-medicates, whether it be drugs, alcohol, food, sex, TV, all these things we can use to numb the pain. So that was quite impressive from Joanne. And Christina, she's in Hershey, said, I feel better and I have noticed great changes and thank you for wisdom and guidance. I know I can always reach back out to you in the future. I truly appreciate all your time. So I did it. They did it. You can too. So come to the retreat. We invite you, both Ginny and I. We would love to see you there. It's going to be life-changing. It's going to be phenomenal. So we'd love you to come. Sign up. You can sign up at this number. That takes you to Nemacolin reservations. As we said, it is limited to 10 people. So as we finish up here, I want to thank you for your time, but I would like to open it up to any questions. And I'll give you some time to think about questions and to bring those questions up to the chat box. As I said, there's a little bit of a delay, so it takes time. And I've got my first question. Okay. I identify with all three of those types of depressions. How do I know which one I am? Yeah. Well, yes, we can be all three depressions at different times, can't we? So when I'm in a consultation with you, what I'll be able to do is do an 8-point examination to determine your metabolic type, and we'll be able to know what is just an imbalance and is just creating havoc with you right now, and what is truly you. What are the dates of the sanctuary again? Is another question. Yep, yeah, okay, October the 23rd and 25th, it's up there right now. Okay, great. How can I find out more? Well, you can go to Nemacolin's website, where they have a long explanation of everything that's included. Or we can set up a time to chat and I can tell you more. And another question I have is, can I bring a family member? Yes, of course you can, but you will be busy with your therapy and treatments each day. So if you'll be worrying about them, then I think it best to, well, it's probably a really good use of your time to just take this time for you. It's an opportunity to work solely on you in a very healing and profound way. If you're sitting there worried about the person that you brought with you and are they feeling bored, or perhaps you didn't meet them for dinner when you were supposed to, then it's going to really detract from your treatments. So I want you to get the most out of this, and it's hard to do when you're constantly thinking about somebody else, isn't it? Any other questions coming in? I'm on medications. Is this for me? And that's from Joni. Joni, yes, it is. There are times when we need to be on medications. I'm certainly not opposed to medication. It can literally be a lifesaver, can't it? So let's get you as healthy and balanced as possible, and then we'll work with you and your goals. Whether it's to maintain your meds or reduce them, that's up to you. We'll work with you where you need to be. Yeah, medications for a lot of people are definitely, definitely needed. Yeah. There will be a recording of this webinar going out. So if you didn't manage to get the link for your Yoga Nidra, it will be in the recording, and I will also send that link out to you as well. So I'll follow up with an email just thanking you for coming to the webinar with the recording link and an email link to the Yoga Nidra as well. And I think that's it. I want to thank you for your time. I will leave the sign up here and the number for you in case you need it. But officially, the webinar is done. I see no more questions coming in right now. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks for Ginny being on the call. And please feel free to give me a call or contact me through my website, and we can chat and see whether the sanctuary is right for you at this time. Thanks a lot.